Welcome to the second episode of the season 11 of the Comm-UNITY podcast hosted by Civsos Africa. For those that listened in to episode 1, I was privileged to host Treasure Layola, an enabler of the executive office at Civsos Africa, who was taking us through what episode 1 of the podcast that was officially launched in 2020 was like. We spotlighted African philanthropy through what the first episodes were, and in particular, Treasure highlighted what the aspect of mental health looked like, because that was one of the topics that she identified was unique to that season of the podcast. I invite you to tune in if you already haven't and listen into not only the recap of season 1, but then also the entire season, which is available on all our social media platforms at Civsos Africa. So this afternoon, I'm privileged to continue the journey with Treasure, our enabler and a gifted lady in so many ways. We're going to be discussing the different forms of giving within the Ugandan communities and how these are interwoven within the African culture. So Treasure, welcome back to the Comm-UNITY podcast.
Thank you, Antonio. How are you?
Very well. I don't know if you've listened into season 1 already, to episode 1 rather. I don't know how you feel about it, but well, you're here for yet another episode.
Thank you, Antonio.
So, how are you today? You told us who you are, so we know who you are and what you like. How are you feeling today? What's the weather been like? I know there was a bit of rain in the morning. How have you enjoyed that?
No, I'm feeling really okay. I'm feeling good. I'm happy to be here.
So, Treasure, episode 2 focuses on season 2, which really was about giving within the Ugandan communities. So, this was the second journey of the podcast. Tell us more about what your key takeaways were in that.
Okay, thank you, Antonio. For this particular season, we interacted with a lot of different communities coming to the forefront and giving and sharing what they had. I was particularly intrigued about a story of students that were locked up during the lockdown, and their teachers and lecturers got together and decided to put food together. But not food per se, but they thought maybe they would do it differently because of the whole issue of, yes, let's give posho, let's buy posho, but someone may not want posho, someone may want something else. So giving people in the context of dignity, allowing them to choose what they want. So what they decided to do was get together, collect some money, and sent out this money to these students, and it was able to do many different things for them, but from their context and based on exactly what they wanted. Because I will assume, yes, maybe Antonio needs posho, but maybe Antonio doesn't eat posho. Maybe he's allergic. So why don't I just give you money and say, okay, here, get what you want. But also, away from that, recently someone walked up to me and said, okay, I know it's your birthday, but what can I get you? Because I don't want to go buy you something, assuming that that's what you need when you actually don't need that. And so I said, okay, this is what I want, and they asked how much is it. So I found that really, really humbling, but also dignifying, that someone would think of, let me ask what they actually want. What do you want? Or how do you even want it? Instead of assuming and say, okay, yes, just because I want to give, here, I'm giving. But going to that level and actually asking, what do you want? And how can I help you? I found that really humbling and interesting in a way. So, yeah, for me that stood out really.
Wow. So dignity in giving. That's a very, very interesting aspect of season 2 and giving within the communities. In episode 1, we talked about the different giving reports, about 6 that Civsos Africa has put together. And we actually said that these are available on the Civsos Africa website. But I'm also aware that in line with the uniqueness of giving in Uganda, Civsos has done, I believe there are 2 publications, and one of these is titled Our Generous Spirit, you know. And I know that it captures the different symbols and expressions of giving across 13 areas, 13 sub-regions across the country. Any unique things you've pointed out in this publication? I know you're a reader, so feel free to hint on one or two aspects and what you've picked out on that in terms of giving in Uganda and in our communities.
Thank you very much, Antonio. The most interesting aspect about that project, Our Generous Spirit, it's done in a very interesting way. It's and I remember we had a photo exhibition for the same, where these different activities and different images were captured from the different regions of Uganda. And I was even more intrigued that this book made it to a restock. My hope is that maybe schools will pick it up, because all the different ways and forms of giving, how the people in Tororo do it, how the people in Kabale do it, people in Bunyoro do it. But the fact that it's captured in picture, you can literally see the story unfolding as you look at the images. There are different images of our cultural, traditional functions, even how people used to do it back in the day. I remember in Kabale, there is a picture that is captured where a group of young people are actually walking in the village, singing with drums. And it turns out they were actually going to visit the elderly.
Wow.
They are taking food, they are taking things that are required. And the whole reason they would actually do the singing and the drumming was to draw attention to what they are doing. So different people would join in and join the group as they move along, distributing those things to the elderly people. So I really found that quite intriguing. Yeah.
Wow! So you've actually picked out one of the many concepts that are in the book, and the book titled Our Generous Spirit, like you said, is available at a restock for those that are in Kampala, and I know that it's also South Africa has availed it at Local Flavors in Jinja. So please get yourself a copy and dive into the diverse symbols and expressions of generosity across the country. Quite an interesting book. I definitely would be excited to see the feedback that comes from the different people that share these copies. I know that earlier, before the Generous Spirit, Sipsos also did a unique, Sipsos has very unique publications. They did one on African proverbs on generosity. Do you have any one or two proverbs from the book that you were interested in, and what you think proverbs speak about giving in our communities?
Okay, so the African proverbs on generosity actually curates different proverbs from different regions, and these have been interpreted to English. So if you get a copy of the book, you're able to read and relate, because it's not just here in Africa, but these proverbs can actually spread across the world.
Okay.
So there is this one. Allow me just to read it.
Yes.
A basket of giving is usually given to those who are generous.
Wow.
Yes, and this is it's self-explanatory. The more you give, the more you receive. It's even biblical.
Yes.
So I find that the different proverbs illustrated in this book will actually speak to us. If you went to your grandmother or someone from a senior citizen, let's say, and just ask them to share just one proverb that they recall while growing up, and you write it down, I'm sure we'll have more than what we've even captured here.
Wow.
Because different cultures, different traditions, different beliefs, but at the end of it all, we'll find we are all in tune, because giving is like a universal language.
Wow.
Yeah, it's that gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
And there's also this one that stood out for me, but I can relate. And it says, do not despise a bridge on which you have crossed. You cannot climb a ladder with your hands in the pockets.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Gosh. I've been, as you shared those two, and noting that you had noted them in what looks like your journal, and you've kept them all this while. That's very, very interesting. I'm wondering which proverbs speak to me. The one that really speaks to me about generosity, and that is really at the heart of my mind, is one hand cannot lift a heavy load. The need for us to collectively come together to lift the heavy loads. And I think this was evidenced throughout episode 2 of the podcast, where we are seeing the power of community. So that's very interesting. I'm happy that Treasure has this noted in her journal. I think I need to note a few of these also, so that I can get to know them. And well, you have them from as far as 2021. Okay, that's very interesting. So what do you think, Treasure? What do you think we need to improve as we attempt to spotlight giving and generosity across the continent, really? What do you think we need to do as individuals and as organizations?
Okay, we can start somewhere.
Okay.
But we always face the challenge of limited information out there. And it's no secret that there is lack of comprehensive data on philanthropy in Africa. And this often makes it hard to understand the scale and impact of giving in the region. So I believe improved data collection and analysis could help better the quantity and the impact that philanthropy has around us and of course in the country, but also increasing the visibility of philanthropy. We know that philanthropy in Africa operates under a radar, and there's constantly need to increase this visibility and promote positive narratives around giving in the region. And this, of course, will involve highlighting successful philanthropic initiatives. And I'm sure those are there. We can see them, we can feel them. And, of course, using the social media and other platforms to raise awareness about philanthropy in our African communities. Yeah.
I know that there's also the element to build capacity, something you highlighted partly in episode 1, but you could tell us more about this capacity building. We use these words often, but in this case, in terms of spotlighting giving and generosity across the continent, what capacities do we have to build, and how do we do this,
Okay. We often think it's easy to fundraise, but I believe it is not, because we are often placed in spaces, and if they ask you now fundraise, even at a function, these sprouting wedding meetings, they'll give you something and say, here, raise money, and you can't. And yet it seems so simple to fundraise and raise money. So I believe that's one of the areas that we could look at, capacity building and fundraising, how to do it, where to begin, how to even start, how to start the conversation when you're trying to raise money. And
so that's very, very interesting. Fundraising, raising funds, a tricky one. But I like that you've mentioned that there are a couple of initiatives, and all these show that it's not just about community in terms of geographical location, but community in terms of history. We're members of an alumni association. We're members of a church, a faith-based organization, a mosque, any of those other faith-based organizations. But we're coming together to collect resources. And resources is not just money, We're coming together to think about how to make the most of our time as we give back to community. So just beyond money and the material possessions, we see that communities are leveraging their time and their skill set, to give back to those that are in need, those that may be less privileged than they are. And we know again from the African proverbs, that when the webs of a spider come together, they can trap or tie up a heavy lion. That's one of the proverbs that I really love about giving and generosity across the African continent. So, Treasure, anything else you would love to share? Just one more thing?
Yes, just it's a story.
Yes.
But that saying that the child belongs to the community. When you're born as a child, you can be raised by anyone in that community. They can discipline, they can help shape who you are. But you mentioned something important about philanthropy not just being about money. It can be offering your time, time. Time involves reaching out and talking to people. Just being there, offering your time and talking to people. You don't know whom you might save. But for me, and I mentioned it in the previous episode, that I went back to school, adult education. I am working, so literally everyone expects you. Yeah, she's working, she can afford fees. But I am also a mother of 4 children.
Yes.
Who also need to be looked after and cared for. So the fact that someone reached out and offered to contribute towards my school fees at this age. And they said, I'm going to contribute this amount towards your fees. It was very, very humbling. And it made me realize that everyone appreciates receiving.
Yes.
Because it will come at a point where you actually need it. And I did need it. So I'm eternally grateful to that person. You are my guardian angel. And I know she'll listen to this. God bless you so much.
Wow. Treasure has mentioned something else. So giving it comes in different shapes and forms and sizes, and also has different aspects in the community in which you could be. Are you part of any organization or collective that is giving back to their community? I think this episode points us to the fact that there are many people that are in need in and around you, but you could join hands with the organizations or the groups or the fraternities that are mobilizing the resources in all their shapes and forms and sizes, and look out for those that are worthy or that you think will need that which you have to offer. It doesn't have to be money. It could be your skill. Are you a musician? Are you an artist? Are you, a speaker? Are you good at maybe accounting, and you could help a local organization within your community to balance their books? I don't know. You could name it. So if you're not part of any of those, you would want to consider that. And I hope that this episode, and if you listen into the season 2 of the Comm-UNITY podcast, will collectively inspire you to go out and do good. At Civsos Africa, we are passionate about community and would love to tell your story. So feel free to reach us and share with us your story on what you're doing in your community to give back to the members within that community. Treasure, it's been a privilege hosting you this episode 2. Thank you so much for giving of your time. So you are a philanthropist.
Thank you, Antonio.
Have a great day.
An honor.
Yeah. To our listeners, hope to catch you soon.